So when we're throwing a knee kick or a hizageti, a lot of the power in the kick is actually going to be coming from our stabilizing leg. So if we're throwing a kick with our right leg, we're going to be explosively extending that left hip to gain power into the kick. For this reason, it's important that we train that strength and power into hip extension in the ranges of motion that we're going to be using it in the kick. So the first step is to make sure that we have optimal hip extension range of motion in that back leg. And there's a number of mobility interventions that we can include to help optimize this.
So we can perform a passive stretch for the hip flexors in a lunge position with the affected side behind. And from here, initiating a strong posterior pelvic tilt. So we're basically trying to tuck the pelvis in, performing that posterior pelvic tilt to bring on that stretch. And then from there, gently gliding the pelvis forwards. Ideally, we should have the back ankle in dorsiflexion to try and increase a little bit of that tension through the posterior chain and avoid going into lumbar extension. So we want to maintain that posterior pelvic tilt, maintain that neutral lumbar position as we glide the pelvis forward so that we're isolating the stretch to the hip and thigh. And then we may also want to perform the movement as a lateral glide, so having the strap on the inside of the groin, pulling outwards as we move into hip extension.
And then reinforcing this with some strength and power work, focusing on hip extension in that terminal range. So the single-legged hip thrust is a terrific exercise for developing hip extension strength in that terminal range of motion where it's required in the kick. And we can see here that biomechanical similarities. Olympic lifts and their derivatives are also a terrific way of developing terminal range hip extension strength and power.